What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Founder Hour podcast. I'm your co-host, Pat. On today's episode, we sit down with Dominique Crenn. She's a world-famous French chef, restaurateur, and co-owner of Atelier Crenn in San Francisco, which was named to the world's 50 best restaurants in 2019. She's also the first and only female chef in America to attain 3 Michelin stars and was awarded Best Chef in the West in 2018 by the James Beard Foundation. In January of 2020, she launched VitaBowl with the mission of universalizing access to wholesome, plant-based meals in an effort to cultivate resilient communities. We had a chance to chat with Dominique and learn about her adventurous childhood growing up in Paris, how her relationship with food has evolved throughout the years, her incredible career as a chef and why she's not the biggest fan of culinary school, the early challenges she faced opening up her first restaurant, Atelier Crenn, in 2011, her thoughts on the future of hospitality and food, and much more. Here we go.
So thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. So I grew up in France. I grew up outside of Paris, France. What kind of kid I was? I was a tomboy. I played soccer. I played judo. I beat up people. I defend. I was anti-bully, so I literally beat up people that were after people that couldn't defend it themselves.
You're a vigilante.
Totally. I was very athletic. What did I do? I was I was just hanging out with my friends and very curious. I was very curious. I was also a loner. I was very much into music, art, and I loved going to my grandmother's farm in Brittany. And I was probably someone that didn't like to follow the convention of life, which I'm still not doing until today. I didn't like to go to church either. So
You talk about being, a tomboy and a loner. I think a lot of kids growing up, feel that way, right? Especially if they come from a traditional family,
right.
where there's all these rules, and you have to be obedient, and you have to do what you're told, and obviously you're not that kind of person. The great ones never are. What was that like for you, being that kind of a kid? Being kind of this lone wolf, and trying to do your own thing.
I felt free. I think that's a place that is. I didn't feel lonely. I was a loner, but I didn't feel lonely. But I felt free to be able to be curious about things that I didn't know, but that also helped me to really discover and become who I am today. And I had an amazing, my parents are amazing. My dad was amazing, and he allowed my brother and I to be able to think outside of the box. And I think it was okay for them. It's interesting. Like when I was very young, it's like, okay, Dom, you're gonna be a classical dancer. I tried this, hated it. Can you see me like wearing tutu and dancing? Hated it.
I don't want to say yes.
I just couldn't stand the rigidity of it.
Can you see me wearing a tutu dancing?
Totally, with the beard, nah, totally.
Yeah, I have that face, right?
Play music, piano, flute. I did everything that they say. You want to try that? Try that. You want, and if you don't like it, that's fine. So it was a kind of like they allow me to be free, but they also gave us the ability to be able to discover also those things, and that was up to us to make the decision. So that was kind of cool. They were not the type of parents who was like, well, you got to do this, because if you don't do this, you're not going to be successful. It's like, hey, Dom, you do whatever you want to do, but there is consequences. So no, I mean, I was I don't know. I was looking at the world a little bit differently. I was trying to find myself, to understand who I was. And I love the curiosity of trying to know things that I didn't know, or getting out of the typical idea of a French family, and trying
Right.
to submerge yourself to other culture. And I think that was it was very rich for me, you know.
What was your relationship with food when you were a kid? Were you like a picky eater, or like what? Did you
Okay,
love
so
food to the point where you like making food, or you just eating it?
I think what was interesting is my both of my parents come from from farming family. So I spent a lot of time during the summer and at the time also. You know, in France, it's like you have 6 month vacation, 6 months vacation, and then you work 6 months. But
Amazing.
I love to go on the farm and hang out with my grandmother, and I love the idea of the process of growing and the beauty of communing with nature. I thought it was really cool. And my dad was a politician, and his best friend was a very famous food critic. So we were lucky enough to dine in a lot of great restaurants. And yes, I just love the. I don't know. I was very attracted to the symphony of all of it. You know, and but also you have to understand, you know, food is kind of a part of the culture. It's like you go to Italy, it's kind of a part of the culture. So France is kind of very similar. And yeah, I mean, that was, you know, you wake up in the morning and this is a part of your culture. So it's like I'm sure that 99% of French people love food. So if you don't, then I'm
Yeah.
not sure who you are. You know.
You know, at what point of your life did you know what you wanted to do, right? And I don't, I asked that because after talking to the hundreds of people that we've talked to now, we always ask them, oh, you went to high school, college, whatever. But now I'm a little bit more curious, like, when did you know what you were passionate about, right? When did you know what sort of path you wanted to pursue?
Well, so at a very young age, I was very passionate about learning about others, other culture, other political climates. I wanted to know what was going on in the world, not just read in the newspaper, but be a part of this journey. So I was 11 years old, and I went to my dad, and it was the time where it was during the Cold War. So Russia was literally, the communist part of Europe and the other side. And I said to my dad, I want to know what's going on. It's like, well, just read the paper. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I want to go what's going on. So I said, what do you mean, Dom? It's like, well, I want, you have friends in Poland and I want to, understand those East country and can I go out there? And
Right.
he was like, you're 11 years old. It's like, yeah, I know. I think me and my brother, we can take the train, which is about 36 hours of train. You can put us there, and then your friends in Poland can come and pick us up, and then I can, learn about Poland and what's going on in the East country of that part of the world. And my dad was like, are you crazy? And he put us on the train. And I swear to God, he put us on the train, and the East Germany and the West Germany was still happening. And I remember it's still vivid in my head. It was midnight, and the train stopped, and I could hear, German, language. And my brother and I look outside of the window, and it was like those soldier with their like, raffle and those dog with them, and they were lined up on in the train station. I'm like, what's going on? And I was in East Germany, and they came and it's like passport. I was like really scared. I was 11 years old. You have to understand that, 11 years old. And then we went to then we arrived in Poland, and I was very shocked by it. And then I started to ask questions, and I fell in love with Poland and those people. And then I realized that we were living in a bubble in France, and I realized there was other country and other culture and other way of life out there, and that was very rich to me. So at a very young age, I knew that I wanted to um, spend my life to be curious, um, not just being a chef, to be curious, literally.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to, at one point, I'm a very visual person, and I wanted to attend l'école Louis Lumière in Paris. which is one of the most famous school of photography. And I guess I was not good enough at school to get into that school. So and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the United States where I can be free to be who I want to be, and that's how it started.
Yeah, it's interesting when you mention, feeling like you're in a bubble, which I can imagine a lot of people feel that way wherever you're from. And oftentimes that could feel like a bubble until you sort of get out and see other cultures and how other people live in other areas of the world. And it sounds like you were very adventurous, just even as an 11-year-old kid, and your parents were very open to your, curiosity and allowing you to go and explore. And so I'm sure that got you in a lot of trouble as a kid, but I'm just sort of curious, what were some of like, what was like life like in terms of being in school or being in a more like structured environment? Like, did you struggle with that? Did you always want to just sort of do your own thing, or did you also thrive in that environment?
No, I was. I mean, like I said, I couldn't go to school because I was not good enough. But it's because I didn't have the right diploma. I have a bachelor in economy, and I guess I needed to be more scientific about it. I mean, what the hell? You're a photographer, you need to learn about math. I guess so, but I guess I didn't. No, I mean, at school, I was. You know, I was good. I was good. I was surrounded with good people. I was not a bad, I was not an outsider at school. I love to learn, but I was playing soccer with the boy. I was the only girl that was playing soccer. I was doing my own things, and then outside of school, it was just I had a friend and we just went around and just do our own thing. But I was never getting myself in trouble in a way was bad. It was just I was discovering things outside. But my parents sent me to go to Paris and parties, and they just told me at a very young age, you want to go to Paris and party, you want to drink, you want to do drugs, guess what? You can do if you want to, but there is consequences. So he allowed me to kind of like to be a good girl somehow. I mean, not that good, but like a good girl. But you have to understand too. I told my mom, I knew at a very young age that my brother and I were adopted. And my brother is not my real brother, but I knew I was adopted. And I had a discussion with my mom and to try to understand it. And I felt that I was a little bit nomadic within myself. And there is things that were in my psyche or things that I was discovering that I didn't understand why, because I didn't grow up. I grew up in a very traditional French family, and then used to hang out. All my friends were Moroccan, Tunisian, from Africa. I used to love to hang out, the music and all that. So I was trying to be open about this, and I told my mom I don't think I could ever stay in a country where you get a job and this is the job for the rest of your life. I need to go out there and learn other things. So they were very open about this. So I think that allowed me that conversation and that engagement with my parents and that honesty and transparency helped me to do the things I wanted to do, but with a lot of responsibility that I was taking. So.
Dominique, being adopted and being this tomboy that you could continue to bring up, I mean, as a child, did you realize that? Was that something that those two things, did it have any sort of impact on you, or is it more so looking back you kind of connect the dots and say, this is the way I was because I was adopted, or this is the way I was because I was a tomboy and I was a little different than everybody else and I wanted to do my own thing and I wanted to play soccer with the boys, right? Is that something that you were aware of back then?
I don't know aware, but I knew that, when I knew, I mean, I think, knowing that you're adopted, it's like at one point somebody put you in a box, when you abandoned and they put you in a box and an orphanage. I didn't want to be in the box. And so I think I tried to live my life is I didn't want anyone to look at me, oh, you're just a girl. I'm a part of this journey. And if you want to take if I want to play soccer with you, I'm going to play soccer. If I want to do things that all the boys doing, I'm going to do it, because I wanted to make sure that no one were putting me in the box. I wanted to discover everything that I could. So was I aware about this? I don't know. I think I was grateful to be where I was, and I wanted people to see for who I was. And I was not scared. And I think at a very young age, that was something that was in me. It's very interesting. Like I couldn't stand when, you know, people were like defining you in a way where the girls on that side and the boys on that side. I was like,
Mhm.
no, why? I have the same brand than this guy, and I can kick his ass in soccer for sure. Why you want me to be on the other team? So um, I don't know. I think I was a tomboy. I don't know. It's weird, tomboy. Yeah.
I mean,
So
I think society, to answer your question, I think society creates those norms, right? And I think that
right,
especially back then, even I mean, like, Pat and I are almost 30 years old, and even when we were growing up, it was the same, right? The boys would play on one side of the playground, the girls would play on the other side, and girls had cooties, and you couldn't touch them, right? But as you grow older and as you kind of realize these things, you say, hey, who cares what you are, right? Like, I don't care if you're French and a girl, or Italian and a boy, or Mexican and a boy, whatever it does. I don't care. It's a cool perspective, right? Why can't we just all be together? Why can't we share ideas,
right,
play our game, have our businesses or whatever, right? And I think that as a young girl, for you to have that level of, you know, perspective it's pretty phenomenal, right? Like knowing that you can do whatever you wanted to, whether there were repercussions or not. That's impressive, right? A lot of people fear that, right? They don't want to go against the norm.
right.
And I'm curious, as you grew up and even now, like, how do you think that that's shaped the person you've become?
Well, I think to understand that you want people to see you for who you are, not because of your gender or the color of your eyes or your skin or whatever. I think it's very important. But I think my dad told me very young age is dumb. You can be who you want to be, but there's gonna be struggle. But just always be who you want to be and who you are inside, and going through this life, I think it gave me a lot of strength to go through
Mm.
the world. Um, because believe me, there's a lot of asshole in this world, and it's true.
Amen.
it's,
Amen.
it's true. And I think you have to understand who you are, and the confidence needs to come from within. And when you have that, and when you look at someone in the eyes and they try to put you down, you just look at them in the eyes and you tell them how you feel. And often they are the one that's going to be scared, you know fear and is present. You can't. Why you gonna have to follow the norm of the society? It's crazy. I don't believe in that. you know I'm Catholic. My parents were Catholic and religious, and it's like I had a problem with the religion because they put you in a box and you become a follower without being a thinker. You got to think for yourself out there. You can believe in God if you want, but you have to think for yourself what is good for you, what is good out there, instead of following maybe someone or some type of organization that at the end of the day they don't care about you. They just care about that organization. And I walk my own line like this, and I think that's what probably gave me maybe more ability to be where I am today. I don't know. And I have two girls. They're 6 years old. I tell them the same thing, and believe me, they don't care about the norm. They are really who they want to be, And this is amazing. And you gotta give that freedom of people and make them understand that. And if we everyone is on this earth for a reason and for a purpose, and everyone has the right to have a voice, and no one has the right to put anyone down.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
Yeah, and It's interesting because, like, you mentioned religion being one of those things, but also just in general, like, it could be even your group of friends growing up where, you could get sucked into this sort of way of thinking or way of life that is maybe not even who you are, but you're just sort of trying to, perhaps fit in or like
Right,
be
right,
friends with other people. But it's like I always encourage people, like, think for yourself. Like, are the thoughts that you're having your own, or is it, are they the thoughts of other people that you're just, having because you want to, I don't know, be liked or
right.
fit in? So it's similar, but I'm curious. You mentioned being like really into the arts and music and food as a kid, but I read or you mentioned you studied economics and international business in college. So what was the thinking behind that? What was the vision for getting a degree in economics and business, and what did you want to do with that?
Um, get a diploma. That-
That's it.
so the thing is it's the way that France culture. I mean, the diploma setup is very interesting. So at the age of I think when you reach the age of 15, um, the France education uh, push you to go one way or the other way. So if you're not good enough at school, they're going to push you to a place where you're going to have to go and study a job. Okay, 15 years old.
Mm.
If you're good, then you have a choice to do literature, economy, mathematics, and science. Well, love literature, but I was kind of bored about it. I'm like, I don't know anything about math. Okay, let's do economy. So I did, I went through, yes. And education is good, I'm not saying that. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn and do the thing that I could do. And this idea is, at the time, is to get a job in France, you had to, I don't know, you have to bachelor degree, you have to have this, and I did it because I could do it, but I don't think I believed in this. I think I believe that you can do whatever you want to do in life, and you don't have to go to school for it. You just have to be, And I think America gave me that idea where, okay, I'm gonna go to America, and I'm just like, what the fuck? I'm just whatever. I'm gonna go, and you know what? I was like, the reason why also I wanted to go to America, and you're gonna laugh, like that TV show on TV, those two detectives, Starkey and Hutch. Remember that?
Yeah, Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to be one of them. I swear to God, I'm like, okay, let's
You
go.
wanted to get a Dodge Challenger and just ride away.
That's what Pat did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You mentioned, yeah. So you mentioned coming to America, San Francisco in the late '80s. What
right.
what what did you end up doing when you first got here?
So my dad had a friend that was working in Sausalito, and he had like a international company. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I go out there and do some type of stage. And then his son was kind of a chef. So I kind of got into that, you know, um, um a community of French people, which I didn't want to be. I'm like, oh, I come to America and I'm gonna hang out with French people. So I kind of like start there, and I fell in love with San Francisco. I was taken by the people, by the beauty of the city, by the beauty of other outside of the city. I was taken with the politics, the freedom, the diversity of the city, and I just felt home. And I don't know how to explain that. I just like, I got to be here. And then
I'm
food
curious, what
was
what drew you to San Francisco in the first place? Was it just your father's friend and people that your family knew in that area, or I mean, we hear about obviously Napa Valley and Unionville and those areas that have a lot of just French cuisine and French inspired restaurants, and I'm curious, was that the case? Like, was it known back then for that, or not so much?
well, I mean, San Francisco was known more like a city a little bit more similar than a European city, and because I've been to LA before, and I couldn't do LA at the time. I was like, what the hell? I can't even walk the street. I got to get a car for 3 hours. I mean, like, I couldn't do LA, and I'm like, USA, no. And then I lived in LA for 8 years, and I love LA now. But San Francisco was, I think my dad probably the connection, but I'm telling you, it was, walking the street of North Beach in the early 90s, all those like Italian little shop, and then you have Chinatown, and then you have other culture all over, and then you go to Napa, and it was just like, and then you have the sea, and very similar than Brittany, and it's just like there is something very pure and very raw, and the freedom also. There's a lot of history in San Francisco, and the political freedom, and the idea that you can be whoever you want to be here without being judged. And so I just loved it. And then the food, then it's just like, I always love, the restaurant business, the idea of poetry and all that. And I'm like, I think I want to get into a food industry. And this is when I did a lot of research, because I remember in France, I was blown away by Michel Bras the first time I went there, and then by Chef Olivier Rollinger, which is on the coast of Brittany, and the way they were cooking and the way they were creating their menu and their story was so different than just a Paul Bocuse or other big chef, or Joël Robuchon, which was very, brigade and from the Escoffier and la la la. There was like more story there. I was like, I was taken by what they were doing. So I was like, okay, if I can find someone that can take me under her wing or his wing and teach me something that maybe I don't know. And then I did some research, and so Alice Water at the time had Jeremiah Tower as a chef for a long time. There was this love and hate for a long time, I think, between but Jeremiah Tower put I think Chepanis the way it is at the time. And then Jeremiah came to San Francisco and opened this restaurant called Stars. And then everybody was talking about this guy. Think outside of the box, open kitchen, work with farmers, not really any recipe, whatever is in season. It was different, and I was just like, okay, I need to go work for that guy. And luckily, he took me under his wing, and we're very good friends today, and I think I owe him a lot of who I am today. He taught me about humility, simplicity, how to treat people, humanity, how to care about your surrounding, the environment, also the community that you are living in, and also not think that your shit doesn't stink.
Yeah.
And he didn't have really the ego that a lot of chefs have probably had, for that I know a lot that I have. So I worked with him.
Did you ever consider, or I don't know if you ended up going to culinary school and like getting formal training, or did you just want to work for the best and learn that way through more so just experience?
No, going to school. It. I don't know. I think it's interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine that is a chef in France, and started his apprentice when he was like once again in France, the apprentissage start to be a chef around like 13, 14 years old. And the idea that you have to go to a cooking school either year, it's like this is a beautiful a work that you can learn from someone that you can follow. It's like, I don't know, making houses or like working the wood, or it's like it's a beautiful craftsmanship. You have to have someone that kind of teach you the movement, the feeling, the
It's
way
like
to do.
apprenticeship.
That's it. Yes, and I think it's
I'm
important.
curious now because you could technically have both, right? Like you could have the formal training and then also work for someone and learn that. But do you think that going to, especially when it comes to food, going to a more sort of structured, environment where again you're learning like the rules and how things should be done takes the creativity out of it?
I mean, there is pro and cons, but I've never been a fan of the cooking school because I don't think they're teaching the student properly. It's way too academic, and there is so much more. Um, Understand what a chef is about is so much more than just going to school and follow a recipe and understanding how to do the five mother sauce or how to grill a fish, or all that. It's not rich enough for me, and when I get asked, those youngsters that they don't know what to do and say, what should do? Should I go to school? And I'm like, listen, understand what you want to do and try to find your mentor. And if he's a good mentor, you can still always take maybe some courses of technique on the side. But I'm not gonna pay $80,000 to fucking learn how to like do my mother sauce. Hell no.
Yeah.
So
I love that you're saying that because, for so long, I feel like in any profession, we've thought of apprenticeships and internships as secondary to the education. But in a lot of, especially the creative field, it's like, I think it's important to think about that. It'll be interesting to think about that as the primary thing is being an apprentice. And then, like you said, the educational, formal education piece is sort of like a supplement to it because you could start developing bad habits that, like to your point, you spent $80,000 learning where you're like, well, I'm going to stick to what I learned because I spent that much money and I want to get the ROI on what I learned, and I'm not going to go against the grain.
right,
And you're going to be a little bit more hesitant, perhaps, to be creative and to be expressive
right.
and do things differently.
But it's also that structure of like, the escoffier where there is one way to do things, is like kind of an army type of thing. And I think is cooking is such a creative part of oneself that is important to work with different people. Like if I want to learn how to do a podcast, I don't want to go to school. Maybe I want to spend maybe 6 months with you guys and to try to understand how you guys navigating through how to do interviewing people, and then maybe you can tell me, well, go to this guy, also to this woman, she's doing an amazing podcast, and maybe she has another way of doing things. And I think this is much more richer to do that, and then that
I
way
will say, I will say, just to play devil's advocate here, because I agree with the both of you. But I also think that there are other people, certain people, and perhaps more people that are different than the three of us, right? There are people that do like going and being formally instructed on things that necessarily don't matter, right? But that's why you are Dominique Crenn, and that's why all the people that work for you are not named Dominique Crenn, right? Those folks didn't necessarily, not all of them, but some of them don't necessarily have the drive to become leaders, right? They don't have the drive to take on the responsibility of making sure other people are living their lives and being able to make their payments, right? It's not that everybody wants to be a founder or an entrepreneur or visionary, right? I think a part of it is something you're born with. You saying that you would go seek, advice, that's not something that everyone thinks about. People are afraid to have a conversation, nonetheless go and seek advice from 20 different people about how to, put together a business plan, for example,
right,
right? Some people just have the drive, like you, like us, to just get shit done.
right,
That's it. It's very simple. But at the same time, when we talk about it all the time, we need people to help us get shit done. And those
totally,
folks, yeah, they don't want to have the burden of leadership.
totally,
They don't want to, be stressed out 24/7 and, think about how the next payroll is going to be met, or, what's happening with that lawsuit over there or that insurance claim, right? there's a lot of people like that. So I do think that at the same time, there are going to be the great ones like you that are going to do what you did, and then there's going to be 99% that go the formal route, do their thing, and they just work for a living. That's it.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's not because we're doing that I'm better than those people. We need. It's like a balance, you know. But for me,
Yeah.
is I'm looking at. I'm looking at a lot of people in my industry, those youngsters, and it just breaks my heart when they're like, well, I mean, I have like $80,000 in like debt to pay, and they're making like 12, 13, $14 an hour. I mean, like, okay, it's like there is something that needs to be happening. Why we don't create a school of cooking with a school also that integrate that sense of working in the same time, and what I was a little bit, kind of concerned is, you know, then, well, the school, teaching you something, and then, well, you need to go do a stage for 3 months and you're not going to get paid. It's hard, for me to see that, anybody that come here do a stage, they get paid because we have to, first of all, they deserve to get paid, but maybe do a school where, especially in that type of work, there you can learn and then you can work. I think that's the cool things to do. But you're right. I mean, there is people here that just want to do the work. They just do it. We are thinker and but they just want to do. Okay, tell me what to do, and I'm here, and I'm going to do the same thing every day,
Right.
and that's what I want to do. And I think
Right.
this is interesting. Um, I'm just talking about what I learned about the way they're teaching kids right now cooking, and I'm like, these things that needs maybe we can improve it.
Right. Right. And look, you know there's just so many positions for people like that are visionaries, right? But at the end of the day, it really depends on that person. If that person wants to do something, they're gonna find a way to do something, and that's
Correct.
why this show was that's why we created this show. We're not talking to the people that are doing it. We're talking to the people that said, you know what, I'm gonna do my own thing, and then I'm gonna get people along for the ride, and I'm gonna employ people, and I'm gonna make things happen, and that's why they're on this show. I mean, it's pretty simple.
Right.
With that said, talking a little bit about your culinary career, you know, how has it progressed over the years? You talked to us about where you started. When did you make that final decision that this is something I'm going to do for the rest of my life? And what were the steps that followed that?
It's I was having a discussion. I was working at Stars and with Jeremiah Tower, and the chef is executive chef. His name is Mark France. Was Mark France at the time, and I remember I asked him a question. It's like how much that will cost me to do a restaurant, and he said, "Well, you have to do this," and I remember I said to him, "But I want to do a restaurant that that is different than just the restaurant that you guys have. I want to do a place where I can bring people together and conversation and all that." And he didn't understand the concept, but I knew I wanted to do something with food to bring people together. And I knew at that moment that I realized that food was a language, but was art. And because I didn't know really how to pen or play guitar or music or sing, that was my way of maybe bringing my voice out there through food. And but I knew that I needed to work in a different area, so restaurant and hotels and maybe traveling and doing things that make me uncomfortable, that maybe that was not agree with, because I wanted
Yeah.
to learn. I wanted to learn. When I was in LA, I worked for 8 years at the Manhattan Country Club. It's not a public restaurant, but the kitchen, chef of the kitchen, and then I had to do, hamburger and sandwiches at the pool and for the tennis player and do private dinner and do catering, but that allowed me to learn about the business. And then I came back to San Francisco. I opened an hotel and a restaurant, and it did very well. And then I had an accident in 2009 where I literally almost lost my life too. And I realized that I have nothing to lose. I need to do the things that I want to do. And I didn't have any money. I didn't have any investor. And Juan Contreras, which is my pastry chef and my partner, we've been together for 14 years. We looked at each other. It's like, fuck, let's do this. And the idea was in the middle of the crisis year in America, 2008 to 2012 or 14, and we were like, we have nothing to lose. And then we wanted to create a workshop because I was telling him about my dad and his painting, and he was a painter also. And why we don't create a place where people can create, people can feel safe, and also people can engage in the conversation of every day through food and ideas and the community. And I found this place. Matter of fact, this place was the Plum Jack Cafe, was empty for 18 months, was the owner of the restaurant belongs to Gavin Newsom, which is a governor at the time. And the owner of the building was this couple, this Japanese husband and wife that had I think, the building in the family for a long time. And I swear to God, and I say, I want to meet the owner of the building. I met them. Listen, I didn't have any money. I didn't have any credential. And I look at them and I say, listen, this is who I am. This is where I come from. This is where I grew up. This is my idea. And I'm going to really take care of your building. And we shake hands. Will not happen today. It's crazy. We shake hands, and I'm like, fuck. I need to buy the restaurant. So I needed to find like $250,000, and I did it. But I was not afraid. I didn't have anything. I didn't have any business plans, anything. I'm like, I just shake his hand, and I look at him in his eyes. I'm going to take care of this. And January 2021 will be 10 years of owning Atelier Crenn, yes.
So I want to talk about all that, but before we do, I'm kind of curious, when you first started working, under Jeremiah Tower and Stars and, getting your career off the ground, were you, I'm obviously you were a great chef, but were you getting a lot of validation and a lot of positive reinforcement and just, people, whether it was Jeremiah or just people around you telling you like, Dominique, you're a great chef. Like you should do this, you should do that. Like you're doing really well. Were you getting a lot of that, or was it just a long sort of process for you to always prove yourself everywhere you were?
First of all, being a great chef, it takes a long time, and I don't know if I'm there yet, but I think it was, the beauty of Stars is I don't think I was looking at validation. I think I was looking more at challenge. And what was great about Stars is literally you come as a cook and they give you a menu and there's no recipe. And they give you maybe 3 dishes on that menu. Okay, you're going to do a salad like this, a sardine. They give you some guidance and it's up to you to do the dish. So it gave you this is enable you to be creative. And obviously when someone gives you this space of being creative, you don't want to disappoint them. So I didn't want to disappoint my chef, and then you wanted also to make sure that you were also at the level of others. So everybody was like wanted to do well with each other, but everybody understood also that we needed to be a team. And if someone was going down, to kind of lift them up. So it was not about validation. It was about learning and finding your voice and working with a great team. So that's what happened. I mean, obviously some people want to be told every day how great they are. That was not my interest. I know I'm great, so.
Yeah.
So come 2009, 2010, you have this space in San Francisco with no money, no credit, no credentials. Um, you know, what do you do? I mean, you know, what's the first thing you do?
So what you do is you look at the kitchen where maybe there is two oven that doesn't work and most of the fire doesn't work, and you're like, okay, and whatever table, whatever money you can get, and you just open. That's all you do, and you people come or they don't come, and that's all you do. But the key of it is you have to have a vision, and you can't let somebody to tell you that your vision is not good enough. You have to have the vision, and you got to follow that vision. And you have one people that come to your restaurant, of 10 people to come to the restaurant. You just work with your head down and you keep your vision alive. And I think that's what helps us, because believe me, when we opened Atelier Crenn, I was doing walk in the forest and one was doing some other thing, and then there was like one critic was like, oh, what is Dominique Crenn and Juan Contreras next gonna do? Are they gonna do an edible, Golden Bridge? And I'm like, what the fuck? It's like, who are you? I was like, I'm like, but you can't care about this. What we care, that what we did come from here, from love, from a passion, and from a vision, and we knew that this is what we believed, and we knew that maybe one day someone will maybe come and write about it nicely, and that's what happened. So it was pretty nice.
And Dominique, so you talk about vision, right? You talk about you have to have a vision.
Yeah,
You
right.
call the restaurant Atelier Crenn, right? Atelier in French meaning like a workshop or a workspace, right? What was your vision, and why did you consider this your workshop?
Well, so Atelier Crenn is named after my dad. He had a workshop called Atelier Papa Crenn where he used to paint, and that was a place of creativity, of community, and art. So that's what we wanted to create. We wanted to create a space where it's welcoming, diversity and ideas and people from all over, with a sense of ownership and respect, and also a place where you don't have to have these kind of like menus where a restaurant we were like, well, we have to do this because the guests want this. We wanted to be free of doing things, and we wanted people that wanted to be with us to come. And when you think a workshop, what is a workshop? Workshop. So you work, and it's a shop where you always work and create. So that's what we did, and that was kind of in the philosophy of my dad, of freedom and art and beauty. So, and acceptance.
Hmm.
I love that.
So you opened the restaurant, in 2011, and it was just a few years later that I think the Michelin Guide, rewarded you 2 Michelin stars, which is one of the highest honors, obviously, you can get as a chef, as a restaurateur. And so I'm kind of curious, like, how did it sort of in just 3 years become such a success? And how did you feel when that happened?
Well, so it's another R word. We didn't open this to get those, any star. I think it was great for the team, because I grew up in France, and Michelin was kind of a big thing. I think when we get the first one, great. We had the first one before at the hotel, and then when we get the second one, there was a different way of looking at it, where also they put me in kind of a box of a woman getting the first, second star in the United States. But then I realized that was a platform for youngster and young women maybe to look at me. and say, you can do anything you want, you just have to do it. And then the third star happened, and then that put us another level. But what he made us feel, and I talked to Juan, and we talk a lot about it, is it's nice that someone can recognize, you as maybe as an artist, and as a point of view, and not that typical, three Michelin star where you go there and you got, your appetizer and you caviar and you meat and you fish and you dessert and the cheese plate and all that, and this is the same, in a box, and then you give three Michelin star to a team that really have a point of view and their own point of view, and created something that come from them, like memories or something very special, and yeah, it's really nice, and it's nice for the team, and he allow us, to maybe do other things. But remember, the star doesn't define us. It's really what we do with us, with the star, that define us. So it's like use that platform of being out there, and yeah, we feel very grateful about it. But God, I have so much more to do. It's crazy, like we creating right now that it's totally different, and I don't know what's going to happen, but we just continuing of creating, and lucky enough that now people come and from all over the world, and converse with us through the food. So this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
The one thing that has been super interesting for me, and it's obviously been like a huge, just like a huge phenomenon the last, let's call it the last 5-6 years, maybe even the last decade, is just chefs becoming celebrities, right? And that was really never the case. When I was growing up, we never really heard about specific chefs. And you're going to Dominique Crenn's restaurant, or you're going to maybe Alice Waters, but like, you weren't really going to the restaurant because of the chef, or the Gordon Ramsays of the world, or whatever, Thomas Keller. But now, you see people aspiring to be chefs, right? Aspiring to be celebrities. And, you were obviously on the show Chef's Table. And I think that that was something that became a true phenomenon and a true reason why people started viewing chefs as more than just cooks, right? And seeing them as, leaders and influencers and thought leaders. You know, as one of those folks who is a celebrity chef, no doubt, as a result of the fame that you've garnered over the years, how do you use that platform? How do you influence others, and how do you influence, the world or the planet, um, as a result of who you are and what you've built?
I mean, I think when you get to a place where people start to know your name, I think for my industry, I think it's great in a sense, because for me, we can use that platform to change a lot of things, in the food system and all that, Yeah, but we have to be careful, because I really don't like the word celebrity, because it put you to a place where um, it's kind of out there. And I remember, like, I took a tour. Let's talk about cooking school again. It was in San Francisco, and it was just like all those kids were watching Food Network, and I'm like, because like they see the celebrity chef and I'm like, what the fuck? It's just like, you can't. What, this is not what we are about. But what is great right now is people listen to us. People listen to us because there's so many things. Being a chef is not just cooking. It's really, you have the responsibility with your community, with where the food comes from, with the food system, the social economic. I mean, there's so many things that we need to be responsible about, and he bring the light of that, and I think this is beautiful. I mean, you have Rene from Noma in Copenhagen. Is when he started, um, the the food kind of like a festival, and people talking about issues and things like that. I think this is very important and very rich, and I like that type of celebrity chef that use their platform to better the industry and the environment. Um, so it's great that people are listening to us. I think this is a very important, especially right now. Very vocal about food and the food system and what's going on, and the industrialization of food against the little farmers. There is a lot of things we need to talk about, because when you think, food is very political, and food is also the core of the society, and we are the one that have been giving basically the reign of it. So
Yeah.
we got to show up.
And,
We
and
have
honestly,
to show up.
and I know Nerses would agree, and I'm sure you would too, that food is probably one of the most powerful unifying forces in the world, in terms of, regardless of what your politics are, regardless of what your beliefs are and where you're
Right.
from and what you look like, it's just food is, that one connecting factor that can bring people together. And so, I'm curious, again, you mentioned, Atelier Crenn is coming on to almost 10 years next year, which is an incredible accomplishment for any chef, for any business owner. And I know you have other projects that you've worked on in other restaurants, but I'm kind of curious, with the current climate, with the coronavirus pandemic, and unfortunately the hospitality industry, restaurants have been hit, one of the hardest hit sectors of the world. And I'm curious, where you see things going with not only your restaurants, but just the whole restaurant community as a whole.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been difficult, and I'm I'm pained and heartbroken to see everything that's going on in my industry, and it's also a time for us to reflect on where our industry is going to go. Um, I truly believe there is a lot of good that can come out of it. Um, First of all, I believe in diversity. So if somebody tell me that it's just going to be, food truck now open for the rest of the end of time, this is, for me, it's like, oh yeah, okay, this is bullshit. We have to have the diversity, like you have diversity in music and art, and we have to have diversity. I think what's going to happen, and what is happening right now, it's going to be a time and place, and it's going to be about community, and it's going to be about the value of the person that is leading this restaurant, and where the food come from, and for the customer, how you're going to spend your money is, do you want to give your money, is it's going to be almost an act of activism, because you want to support your community. I want to support my community. I don't want to buy things that I don't know where they come from or are on the other side of the world. I want to work with my fishmonger. I want to work with my farmers, even if it's dishes and menus that is very personal. And I think that's going to go this way. That's the beauty of it. So if you go to a restaurant, you're going to know where your food comes from, and it's going to be the work of a community that really rebuilt with each other. And I think that's beautiful, and I think that's going to go there. Um, I hope that, I think my hope is, any corporation, I hope they're going to go. And I hope that as a community of the industry, we can bring affordable food also to those community, instead of feeding them, shit. And, when you look at the pandemic, and you look at uh, people that have died, and people that have got really sick, and you really go deep in, this is the way we've been feeding America. It's not proper. We
Can
have
you
to.
go? Can you go deeper into that? What do you mean by that?
What do I mean by this is so up to the 1940 or 50, well, a lot of great food. Then the industrialization of food became, and you had the TV dinner and all that. So what is being created is food that is not food. So if you're feeding yourself to that, you're going to have underlying problem. You know what I'm saying? Um, the best food up to the 1960 in United States were African American food, best food in the world. Okay, best food in America, delicious, fresh, and then there is suddenly those corporations like fast food came into those community and say, hey, we're gonna give you a way that you can buy food cheaper, and maybe you can become maybe an owner or whatever. And they literally killed the culture of food in America. They put every corner they put those fast food restaurants, and you have those store where you could buy alcohol. We all know that the food desert and all of that, that's what happened. So if you feed yourself something that is not good for you, so diabetic, obesity, underlying, heart disease and all that, where that come from? We all know it comes from the food that you've been eating, and it's not food to me. We need to change that.
A lot of times what we see in fine dining, right, is that the food is good for you, right? It comes from farms, from local farmers, but the prices are high, and it becomes this thing where only those that can afford to spend that type of money end up spending that type of money, right? You talk about, you have this true belief that, good food, like good food for you, can truly be affordable,
Totally.
right? And you talk about people coming together to do that, but what does that mean? I mean, and why hasn't that happened already? I mean, why can't people just do that right now? What's the challenge?
Well, I mean, I think we all know this is the industry is complicated, and then you have the corporation, and you have the greediness, and you have the money, and the American dream about, like, you got to make money, you got to do this, and then you have like this food system that has nothing to do with food, and then there's the farmers. So I got to tell you that if somebody in the Middle West, in the middle of America, can have all those field of like corn and all that, or like those GMO, why we can give them the tool to maybe to create something else for that is better, and how to feed America. I'm sorry, I think we can do that. So you said that I'm not just using my farm to just do a fine dining restaurant. I'm doing 2,000 meals a week actually with the product of my farm, which is all organic, just plant-based, and I'm feeding the homeless. I'm giving them good food, and I wanted to do that. When we shut down here, I was not interested of buying, things, cheap food. We were doing, $38 for a meal that is like 2 or 3, 4 courses with like all organic and all that. So we are doing it, but we want people to do it, and the government, needs, to help us to do it. So can you imagine if the government and on the federal level, instead of giving grant to corporation that produce shitty food that is not good for you, will give those grants to any restaurant that produce food and farmers, and we will feed the school, and we will feed the children, and we will feed community, and then the money will come back to the community instead of the money going to some corporation that we have no idea where they're coming from. You get to
Right.
you get to a public school, and you go to the kitchen, there's no cook there. It's like everything is frozen, and you're like, what the fuck is this? You're giving that to the children when you have restaurants all over the country that could be a part of it, cook good food, and
Do
that, I think that could be very powerful.
do you think that day will ever come? Because I follow politics. We all follow politics these days. I mean, you can't escape it. You never hear anybody talking about this, right? You never hear people talking about education. You never hear people talking about food. You never hear people about talking about supply chains or anything of that nature, because it's just not sexy, right? Those are the most unsexy things. Those are the things that are very challenging to solve. So, if we depend on government, which, you know, a lot of people don't like to depend on government, which is why you're an entrepreneur. Why and how is this ever going to happen? Is there another way? Is there another way that we don't depend on the government and can start providing good meals to students, good meals to senior citizens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, the list goes on and on.
I mean, what's interesting that we the people can do the things that we have to come together as like a movement. You know, I mean, during this pandemic, what's interesting is, so in 2019, I spent, I don't know, 8 months of cancer. You know, so I had cancer, and I went to the hospital, and the food was disgusting. You know, I swear to God, and I start to like, it's like, what's wrong? It's like, that doesn't make sense. You know.
That's all you were worried about, huh?
But yeah, of course, because food is medicine, you know. And then during the pandemic, we did a lot of work and feeding also the medical worker. And then we start to have a conversation, and we said, why we don't, as chef, you know, I create a company or whoever, and then start to bring the good food, you know, to those big organizations that have contract. And I think there is some track right now. There is another, you know, last year, I give a lot of money to cancer organization, because obviously I'm a cancer survivor. My dad passed away of cancer, but I mean, last year I went to this big fundraising, and okay, cancer and then they give me shitty food, like food that is not even good for you. And I'm like, what the hell? So I'm like talking to the organization, which is a huge organization, and say, let me do the food. Let me bring something out there, and let's start to think this way. And that thing is, it's a way, I think this pandemic maybe help us to maybe infiltrate ourselves in that kind of system. And when people start to realize, like for example, like in Los Angeles, you have a lot of studio, you know. Do you want to eat craft food every day? Or maybe you want to create something that is better for you? You know, you work for like 12, 14 hours shooting a movie or doing anything. And you know, the food that you're eating there is not that great.
The problem is we eat shitty food and we rely on coffee to keep us going throughout the day, when if you just eat good food, that energy will come from the food.
Yeah, but you can also drink the coffee, you know. But
Yeah, I mean, come on, Pat.
I'm not saying no. I love it. I drink three cups coffee a day.
but
Yeah, I almost had a heart attack there thinking about not having coffee.
but I think it's about, you know, it's not to like be aggressive and push this idea. It's about maybe have conversation with people and tell them there is maybe something else. We're very lucky. We have a farm in Sonoma, and I was talking to my farmers, and I'm telling you, there is a movement of young people now. They want to grow their own food. This is amazing. About before the pandemic, that was dying. There is something that click in people's mind. You know, it's like, okay, we have to make good food, available. Organic food doesn't have to cost 3 times more than regular food. It should be just regular food,
Right.
and it should be,
Right.
grow properly. You don't have to have the organic, label. You can do, organic farming without being organic. You just have to do the right way. That's it. So this idea of like, well, we can't do this because it's too expensive. I don't believe that. And then it's just we have to think and come together, because first of all, there's a lot of people dying. There's a lot of people that don't have food on their table. There is a lot of hunger in America. Why we don't come together and feed and try to find a solution? I think
Right.
there is an opportunity here. And of course, you have the right to have a fine dining restaurant. You have the right to have a mama and pop. You have the right to have, maybe just a little sandwich shop. Doesn't matter if you have this or this, doesn't make you better than the other, but we all in together, and we just talk, and we just give a part of ourselves and help the community to be better. I mean, when actually we've been, I've, feeding 2,000 homeless people every week, and you go to downtown San Francisco, fucking crazy. And then
Yeah.
it's
sad, honestly.
It's sad, but it's so I decided to everything is plant based. What I do, but I'm not vegan or vegetarian. It's plant based because I wanted to use the farm, the vegetable that I was growing and grain, and I wanted to cook something very yummy. Okay, I've been serving this population for 10 weeks now. Do you know that the best things that happened about a few weeks ago, that those people came back and say, you know, this is the first time that the food is really good. And her hearing that, because they know, and I didn't say that was organic or anything, or it was because it's cooked with wholesome food and good and nutritious and all that. We can do that, and that doesn't cost me a lot of money. I can make a dish that would cost me maybe $1.50 or $2, and it would be a super delicious Moroccan stew or anything like that. And if I can give that to a community or anybody, that make me happy because I know what you're eating is also good for you. That makes sense.
Dominique, yeah, it does. And the other day, we were at a farmer's market, and we were just kind of buying fruits and vegetables, and you see, I mean, first of all, the food looks better, right? I mean, it literally looks better. But then you buy something like an heirloom tomato, right, which is like significantly more expensive than any of those vine tomatoes. But when you cut into it, you smell it, right? You smell that tomato, and then when you eat it, it's like you're eating a piece of steak, right? Growing up, I mean, even though we had good food, we didn't spend 5 times more to buy an heirloom tomato, right? Because it was just 5 times more expensive, or any other vegetable or fruit for that matter. But until it gets to the point that farmers can sell that heirloom tomato for about the same price as everything else, then we're not going to have that sort of access to that quote unquote good food, right? Like, we crave it. I want that, but I can't afford to buy 10 heirloom tomatoes a month. Eventually I'll go bankrupt.
I mean,
You know what I mean?
so how do you get there? As someone that has a little bit of understanding of economies, it's like the way that the price going to go down, you got to create a demand. And how do you create a demand? With what you have. So first of all, America needs to change the way they eat. If you we have to, like, if you come to California, you're going to eat a certain way. You're not going to eat the same way if you maybe on the East Coast, because maybe they have a different vegetable. We have to be able to eat the food that is available with season. Okay, that is very important. And then if you create a demand, then the price going to go down.
Right.
And
Simple supply demand. You're an economics major. You know best.
But it's interesting because I was looking at data, and I talked to a lot of youngster, and right now the young people between 14 to up to like 2021, they are interested in what they eat, and they are willing to maybe perhaps sometimes spend a little bit more money to make sure what they eat is good for them, but also good for the environment, which is very interesting. I had like a lot of conversation on like where you guys come from, and you say they understand that the need of that. So there is something it's happening, and
Right.
I mean you go to country like India or China or all those countries, or maybe Italy and all that. I mean, you go to Italy. Fucking great food.
Yeah.
I can't. I mean,
Everywhere,
I'm
everywhere,
upset that I
everywhere
can't go
else.
right now.
I mean, farm to table. You go
Yeah.
you go to South. I was just in Mexico. I mean, great food.
We're Armenian. I went to Armenia for the first time ever last year, and the food was incredible. I mean, everything from the fruits to the vegetables to the meats to whatever, you name it. It was just on another level. And I feel like everywhere has sort of leveled up and made that the norm, while, like you mentioned, the United States has just been so heavily reliant on fast food and neglected that for so many years.
Yeah, and it's like, or you go to Georgia next to Russia, and all of this is like Israel. It's not, the food is expensive. but the food
Yeah,
is
right.
fresh, is farm to table, and they understood that. They understood the power of eating well and good food, which is very important, and why America doesn't have that.
Right.
They had that up to the 1940, and then suddenly the under. So I think there is a way to maybe rebalance this. Yeah, money. But we
I mean,
where
we live in a capitalist society where those that have wealth want others that also have wealth to make more money. I mean, it's just this never-ending cycle, right? But I think we mentioned this word a couple of times early on, was balance, right?
balance,
You need a balance between wealth and health.
right?
Open that one. No, no. We're trying to turn the lights on here. Um, there you go. Now we're bright. But you need a balance between the money and what's healthy and what's good for you,
Right.
right? But we need younger leaders. I mean, when it comes to, you said your dad was a politician. When it comes down to the politics of it, we need the younger generation to lead us,
Right.
right? As much as progressive as Bernie Sanders is, or Gavin Newsom, or anybody on either side of the aisle, I hate both of them. I hate both of the sides. We need younger people who understand this stuff. We need chefs. We need business people
Right.
to be able to change how our country operates, right? I mean, why is it that Patrick can go to Armenia and have a meal with 20 people and the entire bill is $200, and I go to a restaurant in Glendale with my fiance and pay $200 for the two of
Right.
us and eat Italian? I mean, right? It doesn't make any sense. Like,
Right.
it doesn't add up. Something's missing somewhere.
Something is
Either we're so we just have to figure that part out. And when it comes to healthy food, I know you recently launched a new company, a new product. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, you talking about the VitaBowl?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
That's what we're going to talk about it today. Well, VitaBowl, I'm a co-founder of VitaBowl, and VitaBowl came from the idea that food is medicine, and it's about creative bowl to uh, first of all, it's great for lower sugar. It's diabetes and cancer and all that, but it's delicious. So everything is kind of thought out and nutritious. Some are all organic. Some are more like using. It's not all organic, but we're trying to get there. But it's all about just everything as a purpose that we're putting in the bowl, and it's delicious. I don't know if you had them yet, but it's and they're not expensive. It's like you can get a bowl for $11, and during the pandemic, we gave so many bowls away also to hospital and to youngster and all that. So it doesn't cost a lot of money to make delicious food and food that is nutritious. So maybe like think about, do you want to save your money right now and eating shitty food, or and then later on spend your money on going to the doctor, which there is no fucking health insurance in America, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And or do you want maybe spend a little bit more money and then be great for the rest of your life, and the money that you don't spend to the doctor, then you can buy a nice house.
Right. Dominique, this is something for all of us to think about, including yourself. And I think, in the position you're in, you probably will have more insight. I've been having this conversation with a lot of people recently about, American society being a lot more focused on playing defense versus offense, right?
Right.
As somebody who plays soccer, you know that. You get the disease and then you fight it, right? It's never, why don't we fight it before it happens?
Right.
Throw that punch before you get punched, right? So, whether it's prevention in health, right? Whether it's, taking the right vitamins, eating the right food, whether it's exercising, we do all those things after we have to get, after we get sick, or, we try to look for a job after we're already fired, right? Why not be proactive? As a society,
Right.
how can one start being proactive, as a chef, as a leader, as a visionary, as an advocate? I'd love to hear your advice. How can us as young human beings, or even old human beings, how do we take proactive action and do something right before it happens, right? I know it's not sensational, it's not sexy to talk about prevention, but how do we make it sexy? How do we make it newsworthy so that people are talking about eating the right way or taking the right medicate or vitamins and whatever, being exposed to the right environment. How do we do that? How do we message it properly?
It's interesting because the philosophy of a company, we believe in proactivity. We don't believe in reactivity. You have to be able to be proactive and think what will be the consequences before the consequences. So proactivity is a very important thing. It's all about, we have to start from the best, at the beginning, like we have to, you know to show our children, and educate that, where that, hey, this is good, this is the consequences of this. And when you have that, then you can start, the new generation can start to be proactive. I don't know, you can teach your old dog, a new trick, those people in politics that they are like 60, 70, 80, they need to get out.
Yeah.
First of all, they're not going to change their mind. So talking to the community that is powerful right now, which is the youngster, I think, and come to the table and have a conversation, and and a diverse conversation. I don't care if you like fast food or if you like whatever. Let's come to the table and find something that is bringing us together. Food brings us together, but you know what? The family and the health of our own family, and the health and the future of our children, it's always a common, denominator, a common conversation. We all want the best for our children. We don't want them to
Right.
get sick. We don't want to get sick. So why we don't start that, like really get into something a little bit more personal, and how can we do this, and it's I was talking to this organization the other day, that it's an amazing organization that help, um, and inspire young children in unprivileged, community that don't have access to anything, but expose them to something new, like be vegetable or building something or
Mhm.
give back to others. And when you start the conversation and when you show somebody something else that maybe they don't know, it's always sparks something. And we need to, get out of our chair and don't think that we are one way or we think this way. I want to talk to people that I'm not agree with. I want to have a conversation with them. I want to find solution. We know that we are in trouble. We all know that we are in trouble. And so how we do that, I think it's about conversation and education. I think it's very important. No, it's not a sexy conversation. It's not.
Yeah.
But we need those conversations to be able to evolve and to do better every day. And it's with all those movement that's happening, is it took America to, Black Lives Matter is a very, whatever you think about it, it's a very important discussion. It's very important. In France, it was a very important discussion when, we have France taking over Algeria, and we have the war, and then like things happen in France. We have to talk about those things. We have to create conversation to understand that perhaps we were not always right, and how we can better a community and the world, and be, I think, to be able, you have to come to an uncomfortable place to be able to create change. And and it's true, and we all know that food is definitely one of the most important things, and if we don't have food, there is no community, there is nothing,
Yeah.
and
You know, Dominic, it's funny. Every time we speak to, a chef or restaurateur on this show, it ends up being one of our most popular episodes because, it's just crazy because I think chefs see the world in a different way, right? They're artists, they're business people, they're community people. Like, you kind of have to do it all. right? And you have this, aerial view of the world and how people, function, and psychology and sociology and things of that nature. And it ends up being just a phenomenal conversation. I mean, we don't even talk about the food. I don't think we ever talked about what Atelier Crenn serves during this entire hour and a half discussion, right? It's not that we don't
Who
care,
care?
but yeah, exactly. But the reason why we're called the Founder Hour is because we want to hear your story. I mean, we want to talk to you, right? Atelier Crenn is one of your creations, but what you're doing as a result of creating that platform, creating that community, is what's really interesting, right? I think that's what should go out and motivate people to become, great, or to create change, right? And so, thank you for your time. We know how busy you are, and we've taken 90 minutes of your evening already. But thank you so much, and we
Oh, thank you
truly,
for having
truly,
me.
yeah, we're inspired, and hopefully, with those that are listening are also inspired, and go out and do their own thing in the world and create change and do things for the better. So
Uh,
continue to do your thing.
And thank you. And believe me, I don't have the answer. I'm just talking to you guys, like I will talk to
Yeah,
anyone. And I think there is, obviously, we having that conversation because we all know that something needs to change. Where do we start?
right.
I don't have the answer, and I don't know. It starts with people that want to do it, and maybe that's going to be a struggle to start something like that, or a movement or whatever. But at least we start something and we start a conversation, and I think it's very important to do that, and not put that under the
You
rug.
For sure. You talk about farm to table. We were in, I can't remember what city. I think it was Temecula, out near, south of LA here. And we were at this house, and there was a bunch of us friends, and there was a bunch of these fruit trees. So, I just came up with tree to mouth. Forget farm to
I
table.
love that.
Just pick it from the tree and put it in your
Oh
mouth.
my
You know what
god,
I
I
mean?
love that.
So, yeah. So if you use it, you got to give me some
Yeah,
credit.
yeah.
But I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But you know what I mean? Just even that experience that, you get to pick your own meal,
Right,
right? Like, how empowering is that,
right,
right? Like, how, you literally have control of what goes in your mouth.
right.
Like that to me is phenomenal. So, I do hope that, this movement continues to grow. It's one of those things that isn't talked about, right? Unlike Black Lives Matter, or unlike any other civil rights or social justice movement, this hasn't become a massive issue yet, right? It's not a pandemic, but perhaps, as the community, we need to create that sense of urgency, right? How do you do that? How do you create a food pandemic, right? Where you're like, you know what, shit's hit the fan. Enough is enough. Let's change this system.
Right,
Let's change how things were done, right?
right.
And it's gonna take time, but it's got to happen.
It will happen. But thank you so much and for
Thanks,
having me on the
Dominic.
show. And
It was an absolute pleasure.
and
Hopefully we can meet in person someday soon.
yeah, I mean, I often come to LA because
We would love
we
that.
have a house over there. Oh, I'm going to be in LA. Matter of fact, at the end of I'm cooking with Daniel Patterson at Alta.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're doing a dinner in the West Adam district. So I'm excited about this amazing restaurant. I don't know if you guys have been there.
Never been.
Oh my God,
Never been. What's it called?
it's called Alta, Alta. So it's kind of like a soul food, but like the soul food of Los Angeles, and it's
Got
the West Adam district, and it's really cool. It's delicious.
But let us know when you're out here. When are you out here?
Yeah.
Yeah, keep us posted.
All right. Well, thank you guys.